Hello everyone, welcome to tonight's rendition of Swedish Super Cup. This is the round 2 favorite standard deck of all time. Today we will have two matchups. We will have Olle Råde playing Deadguy Red versus Elias Watsfeldt playing Time Sieve. On the other side of the bracket we have Anton Jonsson and Mattias Jorstedt. Anton playing Psychatog and Jorstedt playing Prosbloom. I am Anders Görling and today is one of last week's winners, Thomas Rosholm. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here. I think last week we saw the better players come out on top, and today we will see more tight matchups between the players. And I think it's going to be especially looking forward to the Jonsson-Jorstedt matchup. Jorstedt is, he's won a Pro Tour. Not that many Swedes have done so. And Anton is in the Hall of Fame. Not only that, but I also personally played both the decks in the respective standard era. Like I played Psychatog in that standard format, and I played Prosbloom in the Tempest Mirage standard. I think that's going to be a really fun matchup to watch. But also, I think Elias and Olle will be pretty interesting. I mean, the decks interact on very different axes, but I still think it's going to be an interesting game somehow.
Yeah, so, I guess the Jonsson versus Jorstedt matchup is more of a back and forth with the control aspect, whereas Råde versus Watsfeldt is more like more of a straight up race. Whoever
exactly. It's kind of
the fastest.
A mirror solitaire match, kind of. But there is some elements of interactions. But we have the Prosbloom deck up on screen now. So just for those who weren't around back in '97, the deck is basically centered around generating a lot of mana very fast, casting Cadaverous Bloom, pitching your hand, drawing a lot of cards with Prosperity, and then pitching even more cards to draw even more cards. And then eventually there's one drain life, you're gonna draw it. If for some reason you can't win, Prosperity actually makes both players draw cards. So you can just cast big Prosperity to deck both players and
force out to draw them. Yeah, I guess another important aspect for new players is to understand the interaction between squandered resources and natural balance. So if you have the squandered resources in play, you can actually tap your lands for mana, then sacrifice them for additional mana, and then use the natural balance to bring in 5 entirely new untapped lands. So very powerful stuff indeed.
Yeah, and coincidentally there are 15 basic lands in Jorstedt's deck. Yeah, but we're going to start out with the other match, I think, right? We're going for Watsfeldt and Råde first.
Yeah, exactly. So Råde playing the Deadguy Red deck. Was this before your time, or do you have any experience playing this iteration of the deck? I mean, Deadguy Red or Sly or Mono Red Burn or...
Yeah, I don't have any experience playing Mono Red in any format ever. I did. I was around. I mean, I started playing Magic in the summer of '94. So, of course, I was around at this point. I was mostly a judge back then. I did have a standard deck. It was the recurring nightmare survival of the fittest.
Wow, that was such a great deck.
It was a fun deck to play. I was actually quite close to playing it in this event, but I had a bit more fun with the replenish deck after all. This Deadguy Red deck is, I think he goldfishes slightly faster than... I need to join the game so I can spectate it on Modo, but I will be right back.
Yeah, I think you're right that maybe the red deck is slightly faster in terms of just the straight up goldfish matchup, but I mean, one thing that's really telling of this deck compared to more modern deck is the low, relatively low power of the creatures, versus the high power of the burn spells. So you have the lightning bolts and the fire blast, really powerful spells, whereas the Ironclaw orcs may not be the most impressive cards you ever saw. Having said that, I mean, I still think that this is a really powerful deck, and I think that Watsfeldt will have a tough time keeping pace.
Yeah, it kind of depends. I mean, we can see the starting hands now, and I mean, there is certainly like okay, I can't actually find the game, but there.
So we're just having a short delay while both me and Rosholm gets the game going. So at the moment, we're kind of lagging a little bit behind. Okay, so I'm in. What about you?
What room were they in?
They were in the. Yeah, let's take this in. Yeah, getting serious. So
okay, I will reboot my my mode.
So players feel free to start. And maybe we should mention a few. Well, as our players get started, we should mention a few words about the Watsfeldt time Sieve deck. Also mentioned that Watsfeldt was we originally had 7 players in our bracket, and Watsfeldt was the one voted in as the 8th player by our viewers. So big congratulations for him, and we're really glad to have him on the team as well as the original 7. Now the time Sieve deck is centered on playing lots of artifacts, sacrificing them to time Sieve to get extra turns, and then using Open the Vault to get the artifacts back into play. And as a way to actually achieve this without dying to creatures, you have this Jace, Howling Mine, Pollen Lullaby kind of Turbo Fog strategy going that's intended to halt the creatures of your opponent. And yeah, like we discussed earlier, I think that this is going to be like a close race as to whoever can get their stuff going first, faster than the other. And we see that Råde is opening up with the Mog Fanatic, so a pity for him not getting the Jackal Pup. We also see him having 4 lands and a Wasteland. Wasteland, of course, being close to dead in this matchup.
Yeah, I mean there is certainly like a bad half of the deck sort of for Råde that he can draw, like the Fire Slingers, Curse Scrolls, even Shock is they're kind of there to combat the other creature strategies of the time, and I mean he's probably gonna be very happy to board those out eventually. But in a game 1 scenario, that's certainly where like sort of the time Sieve deck can get a chance to get ahead, because there's simply like you don't really clock someone with Fire Slinger, you know.
Yeah, exactly, and I think that Watsfeldt is going to be really happy with seeing 2 1-power creatures on turn 2 rather than 2 2-power creatures, which of course would have been the better half of the deck.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean there is also, I think even given that Råde probably goldfishes slightly faster than the time Sieve deck. The time Sieve deck also has 8 border posts which come into play tapped. It's going to be rough, and he also has to play Howling Mine into a mono red burn deck, which is
that's a kind of
a pleasant feeling.
Interesting interaction, to say the least. Now normally the red deck would be the last one to to actually favor that, and I mean definitely enabling the Monk conscripts and all the burn cards you could ever think of. So, is there? Would you consider it to be the right play still to go for the holding mine, or is there merit to stalling it out?
Yeah, no. In this case, I think he sees that Råde started out with Mog Fanatic and then Fire Slinger. He probably realizes that his hand is not that aggressive.
Yeah.
And I mean, he has to sort of pull the trigger anyway, unless, I mean, the other way Elias could have played this is to sort of just play the cantrip artifacts, sort of buy himself some time, but eventually he's gonna need that to draw a couple of cards each turn to sort of get the whole engine going.
Yeah.
And I think that's what he's kind of going for here. He knows that after sideboard it's probably not gonna be easier for him. So, and here Olle draws a Jackal Pup and another Fire Slinger. Bit late, and certainly Watsfeldt has a great hand to capitalize on this draw from Råde, where he doesn't have like Incinerate, Fire Blasts, and so on, where he can just sort of sit back and play Pollen Lullabies all day, it would seem.
So did you catch whether or not he won the clash?
I did not. Think it's still on the stack, or Elias won the clash. Yeah.
So that's gonna be another 3 damage prevented.
I actually pretty surprised that he cast it here for only preventing 3 damage. It seems like he could afford maybe going down to 12 and instead playing like Time Sieve or Kaleido Stone or Kaleidoscope, whatever it's called, the cantrip artifact. Because next turn he's also not really in a position. Like next turn he can go either Time Sieve and Fallen Lullaby again. But yeah, I don't know. It felt a bit premature to prevent 3 damage with that. But I don't know. And Råde still has kind of a bad hand for capitalizing on this.
Yeah. Definitely. I mean, in spite of that Howling Mine giving him at this point like 3 or 4 extra cards, I guess. I mean, there's still pretty lackluster.
Yeah, absolutely. And here Elias now he really has a chance to put on the hurt with like both playing a cantrip stone and and a time warp. So hopefully for Elias he can cantrip into a mana source here, and then try to get the time warp next turn, and then maybe find and open the vaults, or at least that's what he should be hoping for. And Olle still has not found a burn spell that deals more than 2 damage. And Elias does find another land, so he can time warp next turn. That's good for him.
You think that's going to be enough for him to take the game 1, or you think he needs more than that?
No, I think he needs more than that, but it's a very good start. Like he obviously, I mean, 1 time warp, okay, he gets to draw 2 cards, play another land, but if he doesn't eventually draw into like lots of cantrip artifacts and open the vaults, he's not really getting anywhere. Like it's kind of the same as with Råde's burn spells. Like there's certainly a way to draw yourself out of it, so to speak, but he's looking good here. I would say he's clear favorite.
Yeah, you can also see like an interesting interaction. Like Råde didn't attack with the Fire Slinger, but the Pollen Lullaby, since he won the clash, still prevents it from untapping, even though it wasn't part of the attack. So
yeah, that's interesting to note, and he might as well have attacked then, I guess. But
at the end of the day, I mean, Fire Slinger can still do damage to planeswalkers and stuff if it's untapped. So
that's true. I'm not berating him. But it's gonna be interesting here. Like Råde probably has a couple more turns, but Elias has yet another Pollen Lullaby, so it's looking very grim for the young Pro Tour champion here.
having said that, Fire Blast can turn things around quickly and
yeah, if
in
he
a very
gets
ugly.
more turns. If he gets more turns, sure.
Yeah, that's a big if in this
And
context.
there's to open the vaults for Elias. So now he has sort of 2 turns in the pool, so to speak, if he decides to pull the trigger. Another line of play that he could conceivably do here is play Jace, Howling Mine, and go Poland Lullaby again. Probably a bit safer, I think. And I guess Elias agrees with me.
Yeah, opens him up to more burn though.
This is a bit unclear because now it's the Jace is going to die if Olle wants to. He has double Fire Slinger and he has Curse Scroll. So that I'm not sure about that. That's a bit of a strange play. But yeah, I mean, Poland Lullaby sure does a number on Ball Lightning. I would say that much.
It sure does. It sure does. Bit of a desperation move here, you think?
If he goes for... Okay, he actually just hits Elias right up. Olle is playing like Elias doesn't have another Poland Lullaby. I think that's a bit of a misplay. Because Elias... yeah, I mean, maybe Elias just had nothing, but assuming that his 6-card hand contained more options than this, I don't... Yeah.
So
on the other hand,
how would you have played differently? Putting yourself in Råde's shoes.
Yeah, I think I would just kill the Jace and wait for the Ball Lightning until the next turn after you have shot with Fire Slinger twice also. Gives you a bit more untapped creatures, so you can play around additional lullabies. And I'm being told that he does not have a Time Warp in hand. It looks like a Time Warp to me, Mr. Chat Person.
Yeah, so I was thinking that as well. I mean, it's kind of hard to tell because at least on my computer the cards are kind of smallish, so it's
really small. Yeah, but
so if that's not a Time Warp, then what card is that?
Oh yeah. It's like the Portal version. It has some Eastern sounding name.
Yeah.
And the 4th Fallen Lullaby is drawn here. Okay. Yeah, it would seem Elias sort of has this. I don't think Råde can really claw his way back from this. I'm not sure if he draws like Fire Blast, but the question is, does he get to draw another card? And that's certainly not a given anymore.
No, I think that Watsfeldt has pretty much what it takes to get the machinery rolling at this point.
He has three turns in the pool, so to speak, with the 2 opens and the Time Warp. That's not a Time Warp. And I suspect that's going to be enough. If it's not enough to take 3 turns with a Howling Mine in play, then you should probably look to have another favorite deck.
Yeah. I mean, I guess this is a deck that can, just hit horrible draws and kind of...
Yeah, but that's kind of true of every deck. So I've never subscribed to that idea. But yeah, as we see here, it's just going to be very hard to... actually, maybe the double white requirement is going to be a problem. Oh, there's a planes. Yeah, that's not going to be a problem. So you can just time save here, take another turn.
And he also has to double Kaleidostone.
Yeah, but he has to sacrifice 5 artifacts for additional turns, right? So, so it's not Yeah, sacrifice the time sieve, and then you sacrifice 4 more artifacts, and then you still need like, and the collide
you don't actually have to sacrifice the time sieve itself, right?
No, you don't have to, but I mean you will always do so, except if you're Elias Watsfeldt right now, in which case you don't, I guess. That's sort of strange. I think the additional mana from the border post would be more helpful. He has another time sieve in hand, and he is pretty much committed at this point, I think, to casting Open the Vaults on his turn. But he has played the Decathon, I know that, so he probably has some reason for it. I mean,
yeah, I guess maybe it was just a misclick, or maybe he just figured that he would
just
win it either way.
Like he has gone off now, and it's irrelevant. That's certainly a fault, but still a minor technical detail. And now we are in sort of the phase that I was talking about earlier, where it's very unclear that Råde will ever draw another card. Maybe as a result of Jace, but probably not. I think Elias is content with just drawing 3 per time walk and chaining Open the Vaults and time warps into each other, and then eventually he will find the original Tesseret, the Seeker, I believe.
Turning your artifact into creatures, right?
Turn your artifact into creatures and just attack with a bunch of, I was about to say a bad word, but a lot of artifacts.
Yes.
A vast amount of 5/5s.
An idea not too far from the one, kill condition in your own deck from last week. The Opalescence and the Jace effect, kind of similar in nature, albeit very different in other aspects.
Sure. And here we have another card that actually interacts very favorably with Ball Lightning, if you're on the right side of and that is Cryptic Command.
Definitely so.
And the question is does he go for bouncing a mountain here with the Cryptic Command? That could be a play to consider if he wants to avoid dying to double Fire Blast, if he is going to play Jace at all and start giving Olle cards, which again is uncertain. But I mean, we are going through the motions here, kind of. I think.
Are you keeping track on how many extra turns he has on the stack? Is it just the one, or did he stack twice?
No, so far I don't think he has done more than once, and I think Olle shoots the Fire Slinger here at Elias is a wise move. It will conserve him many minutes of his clock by being able to just continually press F6 or put a heavy object on it, and maybe go for a drink or check Facebook messages or. So,
yeah, we're approaching that very. I mean, that's metagaming right there, right?
Yeah.
If there ever was such a thing.
Yeah, I think it's kind of cool that he has. He just went for one of those proxy from the Time Warp proxy. It's not.
Yeah, didn't know Portal was in Magic Online, but then again, I haven't been kept up to speed with it.
It's. I think it's a fun card, Time Warp. I mean, it's not overpowered, and it always leads to these sort of weird decks, which I kind of like. I played a lot of Turboland back in the day.
Yeah, definitely the Turboland, but I played that as an extended deck. Was that in standard as well?
It has been a standard deck at another point where you just had Explorer. But I'm talking about like the old extended deck with Oath of Druids and Horn of Greed.
Did you have that, what's it called, Bloom something, allows you to play 3 lands in one turn?
No, you had the enchantment from Ursa Saga, the Exploration. You play another land each turn. And you had Gush.
Gosh, yeah. That's the extended deck I remember, but Time Warp was in... When was Time Warp printed?
Time Warp is originally from Tempest, and it didn't actually see any play when it came out, but Yeah, the power level was tilted towards other types of cards back then. Like casting big sorceries was kind of a no-no in tournament Magic. You had combo decks that went off turn 3, turn 4. You had aggro decks winning turn 3, turn 4, like a 5-mana Time Walk. It didn't cut it, but then it sort of came into its own in other decks. And here, actually, Elias has found Tezzeret.
Yeah. Maybe you should actually talk about the game.
So actually, Olle got to untap. It's a bit weird.
Yeah, definitely.
Or maybe my screen just bugged. Either way.
No, but that's right, because Watsfeldt is at 2 life.
Yeah.
He was at 8, wasn't he?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, sorry, chat. I just sort of went off on the whole talking about Time Warp decks. Yeah, I see Anton Jonsson is in the chat. He knows my relationship with the Turbo Land deck was a warm one. But here we see what we had been expected for a long time, and it's a bunch of 5/5s coming over. And Elias actually takes game 1. Like I said, I don't think this is standard for how the game should play out. I think if Olle starts out with like just starts out with a Jackal Pup instead of a Mog Fanatic, then I think he's in a much better position to.
Yeah, definitely, like you said, drawing the bad half of the deck with the worst quality creatures and the worst quality burn spells as well.
Yeah.
So looking at sideboarding options, what do you think Råde brings in here? He has some Pyroblasts coming in for sure, I guess.
Yeah.
Also, Anko Mishra's not going to be a card, or will it?
I think Anko Mishra is going to see play here because Olle has a lot of cards to take out. And Anko Mishra on turn 2 is going to deal a lot of damage in the course of the game. Like Elias needs to hit those 5 or 6 mana to start casting open the vaults, and that's going to be painful. But mostly, like I said, I mean, he takes out Cursed Scroll. At least, I mean, maybe he can keep 2 in or something, but he probably takes out all 4. He takes out all 4 Fire Slingers for sure.
Definitely.
And he probably brings in the 2 Phyrexian Furnaces. So I guess he's looking to bring in 10 cards here. The Pyroblasts, the Anko Mishras, and the Furnaces. Because they are clearly better options than, say, Fire Slinger, some combination of Mog Fanatics and Cursed Scrolls. And
so what do you think he's going for here? Would you prefer Mog Fanatics over the Cursed Scrolls, or the other way around?
I think Mog Fanatic is going to be better on average, but the problem is Cursed Scroll is great in a long game where you're sort of activating it over and over, and it gets around the blocking and gets around the fog effects of Elias and so on. But Olle is not going to be realistically able to activate more than 1 Cursed Scroll. So drawing multiples is going to be really hard for him. So I mean, I could see keeping 1 in. So if you draw the 1, then you draw the 1, right? And you will never draw multiples. But yeah, he has definitely cards to take out. Now moving to Elias' sideboard, I don't think he brings in that much. I would suspect. And they are ready to go. I would suspect he brings in Flash Freeze and takes out
Yeah, do you think anything else is going to see play here? Path to Exile? Probably not. I guess Path to Exile, I mean, Råde's deck doesn't really benefit from getting some extra lands, so Path to Exile might be a good option.
It might be, but I don't think Elias wants to dilute his deck too much. I think the paths are for more mid-rangey decks, or where he has to sort of remove something.
Yeah, I guess he's more limited. I mean, for better or for worse, Råde, at least he has a lot of cards to cut.
Yeah, exactly. But here Olle has like I mean, okay, it's a bit land heavy, certainly, but he has the sort of start he's looking for. He's going to go conscript, jackal pup, and then pray that he actually draws something relevant, ball lightning or another creature or something like that. And Elias has pretty borderline hand, I think, also. I mean, it's never fun to start out with 2 open the vaults in your starting hand and no time sieve.
And this time, I guess the Howling Mine is going to punish him even more because it will enable the conscripts.
Yeah, definitely. No, it's looking quite good for Råde here if he manages to stop drawing lands. That's pretty much what this comes down to. If he draws, I mean, his ideal draw here would be a ball lightning, I guess. Okay, Elias goes for the Elsewhere Flask. That's a good play, I think. He can sort of wait on the Howling Mine. But Olle does draw a creature. It's a Mog Fanatic. It means he can come over for 4 damage here.
Yeah.
And already Elias is under considerably more pressure than he was last game.
And and I mean, this time Råde also has the Fire Blast too, as a finisher, so
Elias can never really tap low, and well, now he can. But you know, if Olle gets to attack another time, and then he can always sack the Fanatic. So Elias, I think he still goes for an Elsewhere Flask here and a Border Post. Yeah, exactly. And then waits with the Howling Mine until next turn, because turn after that he's going to be able to cast. No? Okay, I stand corrected. But I would have waited here with the Howling Mine until I can go untap, time warp, so that I get so that
the
you
most
would
value out of the Howling Mine.
Yeah, but so you would give your opponent the least amount of cards before starting to time warp. Of course, Olle, like I said, he needs to stop drawing lands here, and he is unable to comply so far. But
look at the Fire Blast hard cost here.
Yeah, exactly. That's never a good sign. And Elias, can he do something good here? Not really. He did bring in the pots, we see here. I don't know. I feel like that's a mistake, but in this scenario, it's actually quite good because he doesn't really lose anything by giving Råde an additional land. I mean, he has 4 lands.
I think the lands of Råde is Watsfeldt's the least of his concerns at the moment.
Yeah. Take a land, take 2, you know. But Råde is actually again kind of hard pressed, but all it takes is one good draw with the Howling Mine here from Råde to turn it around, right?
Yeah.
Because if he draws, any sort of pressure, Watsfeldt doesn't have can't answer that with time warps and so on, and he also has 0 white mana in play. He could sacrifice Elsewhere Flask to tap if Råde draws like a ball lightning here or something like that, which he does.
Interesting.
Yeah. Okay. So probably Elias is
triggers to fast.
Here. Yeah. He has to do that. That's an automatic play, because otherwise he just loses to Fire Blast, and he pretty much has to play around that. So sacrifices the Flask as suspected, and he's going to drop to 6 and still die to the Fanatic Fire Blast combo of Råde.
Yeah.
So Elias certainly has a bad half of the deck also. If he had like Cryptic Command or Pollen Lullaby here, we could have been looking at a very different game. Alas.
I mean, last game I guess he won both clashes with the Lullaby as well, right?
Yeah, but he has. I mean, if Råde doesn't hit specifically Fire Blast, then he's probably losing the clash.
Yeah, I guess you're right. Yeah, the ball lightning with his 3 mana cost is not really gonna
Yeah,
win against that much either. So
Yeah.
I mean, loses to all the border posts and loses to
even Watsfeldt's lands are border posts. So I mean, I don't have a calculator. I'm not that nerdy. I would sit and but you know, I don't. I would say Elias is a heavy favorite to win clashes in this deck, and they are back to sideboarding. We didn't see any curse scrolls from Råde. I suspect he took them out. He kept Morgue Fanatics, he kept Conscripts, he kept Ball Lightnings. Yeah, I would. And I actually, one thing to note here is that Anko Mishra might actually be really good on the play here for the final game. Like if Råde can go like turn 1 Jackal Pop and turn 2 Anko Mishra.
Yeah.
I'm not sure Watsfeldt can actually win from that position. Like he has to play 3 lands that's 6 damage, and then Cryptic Command the Ankh, and I don't know. It seems
he
like
does have the border posts though that allows him to kind of navigate around that to some extent.
And he needs to get the 3 mana tap out to play. Comes into play tapped mana. Sure. It's not that bad, but it's pretty bad. And it's interesting to note that they are actually sideboard because they should be good to go. And Elias did bring in the Path to Exiles, as we discussed, which I think is... I'm not sure. I think it actually dilutes his deck more than it do any good. But maybe he has some reason for it.
But we never saw a Flash Freeze last game, did we?
No.
So is there any chance that he considered the Path over the Flash Freeze?
Maybe, no, that's certainly an idea. I think Elias the plan should be to just go for drawing as many Pollen Lullabies as possible, and then not getting killed by burn, by bringing in Flash Freeze. But like I said, I didn't play that much around the Time Sieve era. I have seen the deck before, but I was in another multiverse at the time.
Yeah, really.
And here we have Råde, who has a very strong starting hand, exactly the type of hand he's looking for. 3 points of attackers and a bunch of burn, and not that many lands, so he can really capitalize if Watsfeldt plays Howling Mine, which he happens to have drawn 2 of. I'm not sure if this is a mulligan for Watsfeldt. I don't think so.
Yeah, the double Howling Mine. I mean, like we discussed earlier, it's a double-edged sword for sure.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I guess you can't really mulligan this, or can you? What
No, I think not. Like we discussed earlier, I mean, the goal of the deck gotta be to find those Pollen Lullabies, and I mean, what better way to do so than double Howling Mine?
Yeah, no, I think you're right, and I also think he sort of has to. He's committed to it. He's playing them in his deck. He can't really board them out. So that's just how the game is gonna have to play out. And
yeah, we're looking at a double. Sorry, at least one. At least a turn 1 Jackal for Råde. So yeah, like we discussed earlier, important card. I mean, it doesn't. It's not limited to you drawing creatures like the Morgue Conscripts, and it's you know.
Yeah, and now Råde has drawn double Pyroblast. I wouldn't be surprised if he just kills the border post here. Yep, it looks like what's happening.
Yeah, I think that's a really strong play.
Yeah, no, he's playing the Morgue Fanatic, and then, well, he's thinking about it at least. We'll see what happens here.
Yeah.
But yeah, Elias is he needs to start drawing Pollen Lullabies, otherwise he's not winning this game, I don't think.
Yeah.
There are ways for him to put up sort of a road bump and then persist through until he gets to 5 mana, but
Yeah, but that one path to Excel is not going to be enough, though.
no, exactly. And Råde is really tanking on this. I would have just automatically killed the border post.
Yeah, I mean, what other targets are there? I mean, of course the time works,
yeah,
but
I think he's sort of thinking about it in that way, because if Elias needs to cast Time Warp at some point to go off, and if he has Pyroblast for that scenario, then that's pretty much game over. But he's still gonna
he still has to one, though.
Yeah, exactly. He can still save one. So I'm not sure why.
And there it
is. But yeah, okay.
So I guess he was. I don't know. Maybe he was. Either he was thinking long and hard, or maybe something else got in the way. You know? But yeah, we see him making the play.
This would constitute him being a sick bastard, as per the contemporary lingo.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, the kids are saying it. It's all the rage these days. Sick bastard. I don't know. You know, I don't keep up. I just hear it and make mental notes of it. So, but here, okay, Elias is still at a respectable life total. He's certainly not like in danger of dying here, but he is on a very dangerous path here.
And that respectable life total only lasted for so long, as we can see here.
Yeah, it's about to get less respectable. I mean, Råde doesn't have a Fire Blast, but the beauty of a card like Fire Blast is obviously that you sort of have to play as if your opponent has it always.
Yeah.
Okay, here Elias has some sort of... I mean, maybe he can make something happen on the basis of this. Okay, he doesn't play the Mystic Gate, so he can't do double path this. And Time Sieve. Well,
I guess it all comes down to what Råde gets on his 2 cards from the Howling Mine, right?
I don't think it comes down to that very much. It sort of comes down to Råde.
I guess as to whether or not he dies this turn or the next one.
Yeah. Okay. No, that's a fair point. Råde is kind of starved on red mana here. I'm sure he wants to play that Ball Lightning, but can he afford to do so with double Pyroblast in his hand? I think they are going to gain him more value in the long run. So maybe we're looking at like Iron Claw Orc plus Pyroblast or something like that. Okay, Path to Exile. Yeah, he sort of has to pull the trigger on this one here. Yeah, I mean, Elias, I'm not gonna say he's completely out of it. He can draw into a string of Pollen Lullabies here and sort of dodge the burn from Råde, but it's definitely not looking good.
Definitely not. And I mean, seeing as he already has 6 effective damage, as far as I can tell, there are lots and lots of outs for him still.
Yeah, sure.
Or outs, I mean, he can just more or less draw any card at this point.
Yeah, but at the same time, Råde can draw like mostly creatures from now on, and so I'm not saying Watsfeldt is a favorite here. He's not, obviously. You know, he is, as you say, effectively on 2 life, but I'm saying it's not completely over. Jens Thorén would not have conceded in this spot. At least he wouldn't have 10 years ago, but maybe today he would have. I don't know. He's been kind of soft with that lately. And here we have another Howling Mine.
Yeah, Torian being a big proponent of you never conceding because your opponent can always misplay in some way. I guess that was his philosophy, right?
Yeah, Torren was, he just didn't do it. So I never asked him why or anything. Maybe we can have him on the show sometime and ask him like, yo, why don't you ever concede? But I think he's kind of more lax about it these days.
I think that's something you see in other. I mean, I don't know if you would consider Magic an esport, but I mean it's definitely something you see in competitive gaming as well. Like some players are just clinging on to their last breath, you know.
Yeah.
Whereas others are more, scoop their cards more prematurely.
Okay. Yeah. So now that Watsfeldt went, I see why he did this. Obviously, he figures that he's dead to most things anyway, and he's just gonna try to get off a time sieve next turn.
Yeah.
And then sacrifice and then open the vaults. But Råde has enough burn to punish him here, and it's going to be over from this point.
That power blast on the time sieve didn't make things easier either.
No, it's an interesting target. I would have chosen the border post instead, but he's going to win the game automatically either way. So I guess that's a very sort of technical detail, but time sieve is kind of turned off anyway. And yeah, here's the ball lightning, and Watsfeldt has to path it, and still takes 3 damage and will
opens up for the
die to incinerate Råde. And it was a good game, I thought. I think the fact that Watsfeldt took game 1 was the most fun part. Really showcased the bad draws of Råde and sort of what the time sieve deck is capable. He really didn't have that much in play when he sort of went off just the Howling Mine and Time Warp. But there we have it. The Hall of Famer defeats the non-Hall of Famer, which may or may not happen in the next game also.
So before we move on to the next game, Råde advances and will be facing you in the semifinals. So what are you? Just a few thoughts on the Replenish versus the Mono Red deck.
Okay, so
as a teaser for next week.
That's very interesting. Since Råde is bound to take this very seriously and playtest it a lot, I can't give away too much. But I think that I'm going to be playing a lot to making his Pyroblasts dead and just sort of playing the white half of the deck. I have Enlightened Tutor for chill and warmth in my sideboard. Which will both be very problematic for Råde to deal with. And then possibly Ivory Mask. I haven't figured out if that sort of goes in the deck or not. It protects you from burn, but it doesn't protect you from the creature swarm. So it's a card that can be sort of dead. But I think my plan A is to sort of board in Warmth and then cast turn 1 Enlightened Tutor and play it on turn 2. That's what I can say so far.
Yeah, good tease. So moving on to our next game, we have Anton Jonsson versus Mattias Jorstedt. And Jonsson will be playing Psychatog from 2002 and Jorstedt playing the Prosbloom from 97. We mentioned at the start of the stream, you have experience playing both of the decks. Who do you think is favored here?
I think I played both the decks in the respective standard periods, I would say that. So I think that the Prosbloom deck, there was a sort of a draw-go deck around at the time that just had like lots of counters, like 4 counterspell, 4 dissipate, 4 dismiss, whatever, like just full of counterspells. And that deck was actually really easy to beat. You can beat counterspells because you can generate so much mana in one turn that they just can't counter all your threats. and just sort of sculpt your hand around setting all that up, and just like you cast Abeyance, which is like you can't. It's like an orange chant, I guess you young kids would say, but it cantrips, and then you just go off from there, and you can set up your hand to be sort of abeyance, memory lapse, whatever, and sort of force through. So I think Mattias is favored game 1. If he loses game 1, I think it looks very bad for him, because in game 2 and 3, Anton will have access to 4 duress.
Yeah.
And duress is sort of the counter back then to sculpting your hand, or like any strategy that sort of tries to set up a perfect hand. Duress was the counter that came for that style of play. It's very interesting matchup.
I guess it's the thing. I guess that's the thing with the combo decks. Like the whole deck has to work as one machinery, and if you remove like a central cog from the machinery, like it all falls apart basically. You know? It all stops.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's he has 1 drain life. That's how he wins. And if Anton Jonsson has 1 counter spell, then from that situation, Jorstedt can't win.
Yeah.
So he needs to cast like an abeyance or do something to sort of play around that fact. Otherwise, he's going to lose. Now, yeah. So Anton also has sort of a problem here, because he does have a weak half of the deck, just like Olle had. He has sort of the force spikes and the repulses, and even to an extent the memory lapses aren't that great in this matchup. I mean, repulse is self-explanatory. Force spike and circular logic rely on having on Jorstedt not being able to pay, and like I said, the Frost Bloom deck can really generate a lot of mana. So that's
having said that, the force spike's gonna be key to countering that turn 2 squandered resources.
Sure, that's a fair point. I think he needs some amount of them. But another problem for Anton in game 1 at least is going to be that he has a very hard time tapping out. He can eventually go for sort of the upheaval in from that. Like Jorstedt can't go off in response or anything.
No.
But before that, it will be very hard for Anton to sort of cast probe with kicker and so on, because then Jorstedt can just untap and go off with ease in most scenarios. So it will be a really good matchup. It's one of those classic sort of, we don't really see them in Magic anymore. You have the sort of combo deck with the full-on engine, and you have the control deck that's all about countering and setting up like the... So it's a great matchup. They are extremely accomplished players, and it's going to be really, really fun to watch, I think. And
yeah, I mean, as far as the matchup goes, this might be the highlight of the
quarterfinals.
Of the quarterfinals, for sure.
Yeah. And
so I'm also very excited for this, and like you said, both players being really, really accomplished. I think that you'd be hard pressed to find any 2 players to play this matchup better than these 2 guys.
Yeah. And
so I think we are ready to get going sooner rather than later. So let's hope that everyone is ready. It looks as if players are kind of setting up the stream to...
And Mattias JCV, Mr. in the chat. Mattias does not play Final Fortune, I believe, but the lists are available on SVM TV. And we were told before, and I have completely forgotten, but plug all the Twitter and all that, whatever you kids do these days.
The social media stuff.
Yeah, the social media. Just go out there and follow the YouTube, follow the,
Yeah. I mean, I think that this is kind of a really special event in that brings out something that you don't see every day. Like,
yeah.
and with some really high-profile names as well. I'm really thrilled to be casting this actually, and I think that you viewers should also be thrilled.
Yeah, and Samuel Cosell has a brave side bet after Mattias has mulliganed into a 4-land hand. He says Tog will win 2 easy games. Yeah. Okay, maybe before the starting hands I would have accepted that, but as is. Okay, and the players are off, and the question here is immediately, like, does Mattias gamble on the force spike or not? If he resolves squandered resources here, it will be huge. It will allow him to, and he does not play forest here, so I'm guessing that means he is...
He went with the game still now.
Yeah, he said, okay, I'm not gonna gamble with squandered resources, which is, I guess, a shame, because I mean, he obviously, Anton didn't have the force spike, and Anton does have a double counter spell, and now a memory lapse also, but
yeah. So do you think that Anton will play the 3rd land and the Nightscape Familiar in the next turn, or will he...
Yeah, I think so. I mean, he wants to apply some pressure, and it's a good way of doing it. He can still keep up the memory lapse. And Jorstedt, Anton, I mean, this is what's interesting about this type of matchup. Okay, so Anton doesn't know this, but Jorstedt has no way of going off from this position. Like, even if he taps out, Anton can just do whatever he wants. And Jorstedt doesn't know that Anton can't really stop him through that much if he taps out. So they are both going to play around.
Definitely a game of, I mean, the mind games that comes into play in a very visible way.
We're going to see. Okay, Anton didn't. Okay, now it's. Yeah, Anton didn't even go for the Nightscape Familiar. That's actually a bit surprising to me. He should have known that Mattias can't really go off against one counter from that position. But
so I guess he wants to represent the force spike plus counter.
Yeah, I guess so.
Which makes sense. I mean, the Nightscape Familiar doesn't add that much to the situation.
It represents a small clock. Mattias has a vampiric tutor here. I suspect if he plays it the same way I played it, that he will sort of hold on to it and wait until he can sort of draw more combo pieces naturally, and go from there and sort of find the second abeyance or the second squandered resources or something like that, rather than like just finding something now.
So we see Mattias tapping 2 for 2 here. I guess he's playing the abeyance, but from my point of view, he's just tapped the 2 lands and hasn't really committed yet.
Yeah. He taps 2 lands here. It's quite revealing, or he wants to represent. He has an abeyance at least. And if it resolves, then if it resolves, he will cast the squandered resources, no doubt. If it doesn't resolve, then he is going to play the squandered resources anyway, I guess. And in that case, he definitely should have just ran it out on turn 2. So I'm not so sure about this play. I would rather see he go aggressive or wait more.
It looks like Jorstedt actually reconsidered and passes the turn. So
yeah, He's either ghosting and listening in to my excellent advice. No, but Jorstedt is really good at playing this deck. It's he got on the national team playing it. I think he was runner-up at nationals that year. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah,
I mean,
yes,
it's some of these players, albeit you know, very good, both in their own time and currently. Some of them haven't kept up to pace with the latest software, and I think we saw a prime example of that last week with Torian making that unfortunate misplay in the second game.
But yeah, and Anton still is not interested in getting those Nightscape familiars out there. He doesn't care. I mean, he's going to discard them, I guess, or after he discarded the repulses.
So Jorstedt goes for the Alliance now.
Yeah, and now it's fine because he loses to, or he can sort of lose this exchange to double counterspell, but he can no longer get force bite. And this is what I was talking about earlier.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, there's a counterspell from Jonsson.
Yeah, and
he has to slam Squandered Resources here now that he doesn't have double blue up. So, and Squandered Resources, obviously a card that allows you to sacrifice lands to add 1 mana to your mana pool that the land could.
Yeah, just the mere fact of, I mean, even if it just sits there on the board doing nothing, it's the mere threat of it.
It's the threat of sacrificing lands that, and also the fact that it sort of renders all the force spikes and circular logics and so on at least half dead. You know, there is some merit to playing them still, but they definitely lose value. And now Anton is like, okay, I gotta put some pressure on.
You think he'll be playing the repulses on the Nightscape familiar in order to cycle them?
I am sure that's exactly what he's planning to do. I mean, he needs more cards here to sort of do something. You can't just have one counter spell and be like, okay, this is enough. And Jorstedt draws. Oh shit! I forgot I should do the memory lapse joke that was customary back then. You should act surprised when you draw something that has just been memory lapse. Oh my god! I drew the perfect card. Okay, but he draws the memory lapse, or he draws the memory lapsed Squandered Resources. And Mattias is actually in a pretty good spot here. He needs to draw a couple of like the draw 4 cards, like Infernal Contract and so on.
Yeah, I think one thing with this matchup is that Meditate. I mean, even if you just play it straight up in your opponent's face, it doesn't. I mean, this is not a deck that can capitalize on the extra turn.
No,
I mean, to some extent, of course,
no, but the point is more so that you play it to just go off, like you just give them a bunch of turns on the turn that you are about to drain life them. And Anton is faced with an interesting choice here. Like, does he burn his only counterspell on these Squandered Resources, or does he let it resolve and hope that Jorstedt doesn't have a follow-up? And Anton, being the master that he is, chooses to not counter the Squandered Resources, and Mattias does not have a proper follow-up. It will be interesting to see what Mattias does here. He could be aggressive with the Vamp, and it looks like he's sort of mouse-overing it, and maybe considering going for like a Meditate or something like that.
The resolved Squandered Resource is definitely a tell that Jonsson's hand is anything but brilliant.
Yeah, it's at least weak, right? It's not... but he should be patient here. I hope he is, because that... No, he's not. Okay, that's also fine, I guess. I guess he's going for some sort of draw spell here.
Looks like he's still
with
hesitating. Bit tense moment. Again with the the fake outs. Maybe what's the...
Yeah, no, but you can certainly see the thought process here, I think. I mean, it's if Anton just has nothing here. Okay, wow, power sync, that's really good. And yeah, that's really good for Jorstedt from this position.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, with the resources in play, definitely opens up for...
Yeah, he can. I mean, he
most.
could semi-gamble here and sort of go. And Anton, yeah, he starts cycling the repulses and response. Cycle the next one. No. Oh, guess not. But just that, yeah, he can. And I mean, the thing with power sync is that it actually forces all the lands to become tapped. So it's like an abeyance effect in that sense. And if Mattias goes for like a meditate here, and then power syncs when Anton is forced to counterspell it, right? And if Mattias draws decently off those 4 cards, then he wins, right? It's not close. But of course he has to draw decently from those 4 cards. He can't just draw like some dirtle stuff. And Anton has, of course, the option of which he will if this scenario plays out. Is Mattias going to power sync here? No. Seems ridiculous. But he's thinking about it. Or maybe he's just playing slow.
Maybe I think he's actually considering, I mean, if he has enough.
And it's certainly a valid line here if you had a card draw spell or something to sort of start the loop, then I would definitely go for it. He could power sync here, and then Vampiric for prosperity, and draw however many cards. Okay, he's going for the power sync. That's
but he has to sacrifice a land here, right? Because he needs black. No.
He doesn't care if it resolves or not. I think. I mean, if he power syncs here, he's pretty much signaling that he's going to try to go off on his next turn, which I think is a bit of a gamble, but at the same time not. No, it's a respectable choice. Power sync for 4. And Anton retaliates with counterspell straight up. So it's good. The power sync did what it was supposed to do. Now the question is, can Jorstedt capitalize off this with the Vampiric Tutor? Like we said, he can. He can perhaps get...
It looks like he doesn't. Rather goes for the
natural
cadaverous moon.
Okay, that's
as an interesting side note, I mean, Jonsson has... Can he actually like upheaval and play a Nightscape Familiar?
it's still going to take some time to beat down.
Yeah, but it resets the land count, which I guess favors the Psychatog deck. Should he draw it, that is.
Yeah, I mean, upheaval is going to be a problem for Mattias, but I think the Nightscape Familiar doesn't really represent a clock. I mean,
yeah, you're right.
If he doesn't have counters, then Jorstedt is just going to go like land, squandered resources. So, but from this position, Anton has to cycle here again, I think, the repulse, and he would really like to draw factor fiction into counters and so on here, like what the Psychatog deck of old did. And what he does not want to do is draw more repulses. But again, that's the bad half of the deck, as they say.
Well, one of these days, right?
I am very surprised that Jorstedt cast the power sink and then didn't actually go for the Vampiric Tutor. That's
like you said, I mean, it opens up for Jonsson to draw some card draw, or I mean, set up anything huge. I mean, at this point, he could even like upheaval Psychatog.
Yeah, exactly. The clock is ticking. You know, it's not. And that's a prosperity. Okay. And he just passes, and again we will see this loop of Jonsson casting repulse and drawing a land.
So do you think Jorstedt is gonna be?
Yeah, I mean I think Jorstedt has
going for abeyance, or
go for abeyance here. Sort of an automatic play, I would say, because he must understand that if Jonsson plays both familiars, which he is gonna, or no, he's gonna bluff having cards in hand. Okay, no, but that's a good line also. So he has to understand that maximum. Well, first of all, Jonsson has already used two of his hard counters, right? So there is maximum 2 hard counters. And memory lapse and so on doesn't really scare Mattias from this position. So if he casts abeyance, then Jonsson can either counter it, in which case he is close to guaranteed out of counter spells, or he can just ignore it and say, well, I don't have.
Yeah, I don't think ignoring it is going to be the wise choice. No. I mean, no, exactly. Of course, Jorstedt doesn't know that Anton is out at this moment.
Okay, and Jorstedt actually plays his land here. Yeah, okay, it generates 2 mana either way, so that's not really a... So, and he casts Abeyance, which resolves.
And I think that this is the point where we're going to see him really... I mean, the deck's going to take off.
Yeah, with and prosperity now he can just cast Prosperity.
1 gazillion. I guess he leaves 4.
He needs to float like a couple of blue mana, and that's basically it. So he doesn't run out of that when he is mid combo. But I mean, keep like 2 or 3 blue mana in the pool, and then just Prosperity for all the rest, which is going to be a lot. And like I said here, this is the problem. For one thing, Anton Jonsson's draws have been quite terrible this game. But on another note, Mattias has also sort of been allowed to sculpt his hand in this way. And
definitely comes back to what you talked about pre-game with the gradually sculpting your hand to eventually let you get things going.
And we'll see now he casts Prosperity, and for what I assume will be at least 7.
12 is the magic number. So
yeah. And he keeps 1 City of Brass that he can sacrifice for blue, should he want to. And it will be easy for him to go off from this. And remember, Abeyance is still in effect, right? So Anton drawing cards at this point is just...
Yeah, that's not going to help him.
No. Yeah, it doesn't matter. He drew a couple of counters now, but yeah.
Yeah, not going to be able to play them.
Yeah, now I guess he will be casting Natural balance from
Yeah.
this position is the most mana efficient, or the best way to generate mana from this position. It will even force Jonsson to sacrifice a couple of lands, but that's absolutely not relevant at this point. He will just be chaining card draw spells into more card draw and then finishing.
Maybe more relevant is that it slims your deck from the basic lands. So
yeah, sure. I mean, he also it actually like the deck sort of with Cadaverous Bloom in play, you can generate black and green mana. That's great, but you also need blue to keep going off. So natural balance will help with that. But also, like I said, it's just the most mana efficient way of using cards. You're using 3 cards for 10 mana rather than 6. And the thinning is of course good. And he is casting Vamp Tutor, which I guess will just get another prosperity. And Anton Jonsson.
Unless he does, maybe he already has enough for a Drain Light.
Well, Anton is at 19, so he needs 10 cards for 20 drain and an 11th card for the actual drain life cost. And he has 11 cards exactly. So yeah, I guess
he
could just
on the side as well.
Yeah. No, he could do it now. But you know, he might be feeling perfectionist and just go for like the drawing exactly your whole deck or something like that.
Maybe he wants to show off the deck to our viewers as well. I guess it's a lot of viewers, our newer players haven't seen this deck in action, so might be a thrill to actually see what can be done.
Yeah. But there is a huge prosperity and I mean, yeah, he's just going off at this point. He has like infernal contracts and I mean, I can't see all of his hand, but no, he didn't actually. Oh, he cast Meditate, right? Well, regardless, this is just academic from this point on. So,
yeah, I mean, I guess we could mention that back in the days, you didn't lose the game from having 0 life until end of the phase. Is that right? So you could actually go down to 0 from the infernal contract and then gain back life with the drain life without losing the game.
Yeah, exactly. And Magic, unlike the Commodore 64s, can actually divide by 0. So you can cast Infernal Contract at 0 life, and you still end up at 0 life somehow. And that was great. You didn't. I mean, you checked for death at the end of the phase, and at the end of the phase, you had hopefully cast a huge drain life. So it didn't actually matter.
Oh.
And it should also be mentioned, actually, what a lot of people don't realize, I think, is that you can always prosperity forces both players to draw cards, which means that you can
force a draw.
Can force a draw with prosperity
if drain life
if you lose your drain life with or something, you know, you just cast a huge prosperity and both players are decked and you go on to that was actually not uncommon at all back then. And Mattias JCV, there were no such things as steps back then. There were phases, and that was it. You had a draw phase, you had an upkeep phase, an untap phase. No steps. Only
steps was part of the 6th edition rules, I think.
Yeah, but 6th was in Ursa block, and the Prosbloom deck is obviously from Tempest and Mirage block. So we're still a couple of years away from having steps in this, and there's the drain life, and Mattias has however many. I mean, yeah.
Yeah. So that takes us to game number 2, and we already discussed the sideboard plan of Psychatog a little bit with the duresses. Do you think there are other cards he's considering here? We have maybe recoil, mana shorts.
Mana short is an interesting option. It can totally catch Mattias off guard.
Yeah.
For sure. I think he's going to take it in. I mean, looking at his deck, he's definitely taking out 4 repulses. Probably
familiars as well.
Maybe he shaves 1 familiar. I don't think he's going that deep. I think he's going to shave a probe, and I think he's going to shave an upheaval as well. But basically, I don't think he's going to change his deck that much. He's going to bring in the duresses, and if he can fit maybe a recoil or something like that, just to be able to deal with resolved squandered resources or something like that.
What about shaving a Psychatog? I guess, I mean, is 4 really necessary in this matchup? Given the drawing nature of things?
I think that he is. I think he's going to keep all 4 in, and the reason is that it's not actually that draw-go-ish after sideboard. When you bring in the duress, you can keep some amount of probes, possibly all 3 of them, and just really go for Jorstedt's hand. I think that's his best way of winning this game, and I think that's what he's going to try to do. Mattias, on the other hand, he doesn't have that much. He can. I mean, it's one of those really tight combo decks that can't really sacrifice that much. I think he's going to cut some amount of Vampiric Tutors just because he will have more time. I think he will bring in 2 Pyroblasts and a Boil, possibly a Sylvan Library. I'm not sure. I don't think Sylvan Library was a standard sideboard card back then, but. Yeah, so I think he's. I don't know actually what Mattias is up to here. Like he could definitely cut some amount of Vampiric Tutors, of course, but cutting Vampiric Tutors also makes the Boil kind of a non-plan. Maybe 2 Vampiric Tutors for 2 Pyroblasts and a land for a Boil. I don't know. I think it's.
What about the impulses? To me, it looks like a kind of a weak card.
No, I don't think they sort of help you scout the hand, you find the right card at the right time.
Yeah, but so does the Vampiric Tutor, of course. So I mean,
but the Vampiric Tutor loses your card, so and the impulse does not. I think this is how it's going to play out. I also think that I'm seeing the same hand twice. Yeah, no. There are definitely options available to Mattias here, but it's like I said, going to be hard to shave more than a couple of cards to fit all those things. He obviously wants the Pyroblasts in the deck, and this hand is definitely going to get mulliganed. And Anton starts out with a duress and a probe, so he kept in at least 1 probe. But like I said, I think Anton will be looking to attack the hand to a much greater extent here. And Mattias will have a hard time adapting to that. So let's see what Mattias manages to mulligan into, assuming he does mulligan, which I... Yeah.
So what do you think he's targeting? What is he looking to target with the Duress?
I think he will... There are basically 2 options. And they are Abeyance and Squandered Resources. The Prosperity and the Cadaverous Bloom are basically dead cards until either Abeyance or Squandered Resources resolves. Given the rest of his hand, I think he's going to take Squandered Resources and try to get more quality with the probe at the later stage.
Yeah.
Either way, taking abeyance is not a mistake given Jorstedt's hand, but I don't think it's a more safe play to take the squandered resources for sure.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely prevents those super fast. I mean, this is definitely a deck that's capable of going off on turn 3 given the right circumstances, and one of those circumstances is getting a turn 2 squandered resources.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, Anton can't counter at this point, right? So he sort of has to play the. Yeah, he could allow squandered resources and just be like, okay, well, I don't think you are a favorite to draw a natural order from this position, and if you do, I also benefit from it.
Yeah.
And I have circular logic, memory lapse, and so on. But the easier play definitely just taking squandered resources and being like, okay, you are down to 3 squandered resources in your deck, and that's definitely the most important card for the deck to sort of go off. And
so it looks like you went for the squandered resources.
Yeah. And Anton has like a really good sort of hand here. I think it's kind of the type of hand I was talking about. Sort of just get the Psychatog out there, start attacking the hand, and he is well positioned here. Unless Mattias draws like a string of pretty good cards here, like he would be looking to draw Vampirics and squandered resources, and Impulse would obviously be a great draw for Mattias here also. And okay, Anton now he draws an Underground River, so I'm assuming he's just passing the turn here and then passing back, and then next turn he will try to play Psychatog and keep Circular Logic up.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Just hope to catch something with memory lapse maybe. So, but either way, and Mattias having drawn another squandered or another Cadaverous Bloom is certainly not what he's looking to draw the most here. I mean, they are quite they are more redundant, so to speak. Like, obviously, if he gets to 5 lands, he can just slam it, and it's sort of a must counter. But okay, wow, Anton just goes for Psychatog here.
Well, I guess it's kind of a safe play, actually. That he saw his opponent's hand the last turn, so he...
Unless he has drawn like runner, squandered, and natural balance, he is not in any danger.
Yeah.
So it's I guess okay. I would have waited, but I see this line. It's probably a better line than waiting, actually, now that I think about it. And Jorstedt draws a land. Yeah. Okay. Is he going for something here? No. That would be premature, I think. And Anton draws a land, and this is great for Anton. He's just going to start chipping away at Mattias's life total. Anton has yet to draw a Factor Fiction in either game.
Yeah, that Factor Fiction, pretty good card, actually.
He's sitting there somewhere in the Caribbean, sipping pina colada under the sun, and cursing the fact that he hasn't drawn a Factor Fiction yet. It's like, I wish I drew a Factor.
Definitely a card worth fame enough to afford a good retirement.
Yeah. And for those who don't know, Anton lives in the Caribbean, so not in the. He has left the Swedish Norrland behind.
Jonsson actually from the very north of Sweden, which, contrary to popular belief, does not feature polar bears.
Yeah, and Jorstedt has actually drawn a natural balance here. So he's going for the abeyance, and Anton sort of has to memory lapse here, I guess.
Yeah.
And things are looking very good for Mattias, unless actually the best play for Anton here would be to just, I don't know, slam probe with the kicker and just get 2 cards out, because next turn we're okay for a spike. Yeah, that's yeah, Anton should be, if he had seen Mattias's hand, then he would definitely be casting that probe with kicker, targeting Mattias. But as is, I don't think he can afford to take that risk, or I think he's better off just. Oh, he's casting it without the kicker. That play I do not agree with. I think this is weak. Yeah, it gets rid of the 4 spike, but that's kind of meh.
It opens you up to the possibility of another squandered resources, right?
Exactly, yeah. If Mattias has Vampiric Tutor or Squandered, or even like can Impulse for... There are a lot of draws that this is kind of weak against, and it doesn't accomplish anything. I mean, Probe with the kicker is such a kick in the teeth against the Pros Bloom. Discarding 2 cards before they combo off. That's very...
That's a huge setback, is what that is.
Yeah, exactly. It's and there's the Abeyance again. Will he try for it this time? I guess he wants to draw a land here, maybe.
Yeah.
And but what he really needs is to get either squandered resources or just like another land, so he can start playing the Cadaverous Blooms as threats.
Yeah.
Because Cadaverous Bloom is not as strong as squandered resources, but if you get to that point where you start hard casting them, they are must counters.
Definitely. Definitely so.
And here he goes for logicking the Abeyance. It's sort of respecting the possibility that Jorstedt could have cast squandered resources from this position.
Yeah, so if he has had he had the squandered resources, he would have been able to play it and then sacrifices 4 lands and play the natural or
natural. Sure. Yeah. No, he respects it. He's saying, okay, well,
natural balance.
Maybe you have it, maybe you don't. He is down 1 game after all. I think it's sort of a compound play or something of. It's sort of a play that's forced now that he cast Probe without kicker. I think had he not, he could have just said, okay, Abeyance resolves, or force spike it even, and then untap and cast Probe with the kicker and play land and keep up Circular Lord.
Force spiking the Abeyance would have been a good play, because I mean, at 1 mana you can't really do anything, right?
And he knows about Prosperity and Cadaverous Bloom, so the other 2 would have to be perfect, like land squandered, and then he doesn't even have the balance. So he would have had to draw the 3rd one from the Abeyance. I don't know. I think Jonsson's line is questionable, but I understand it also. And Mattias here is drawing, wow, that's a sick one. So this is like the Claws of Gix from back in the day when Graveyard Order was a thing. We'll exile the bottom card of target player's graveyard, or it can be sacrificed to exile the whole graveyard and draw a card. And it also sort of reads as counter circular logic for 1 mana. Because it empties their graveyard. So, but this is a good resource for Mattias to have. So it definitely makes the game quite interesting. Anton draws a pro or a recoil here. He can't can't really do anything with that right now. And
I guess it's one of those cards that, I mean, if you place it on a land with the right timing, it can really like stop Mattias in his tracks, right? And or targeting one of the enchantments, of course.
Oh, it actually only exiles one card when exiled. I did not know that.
It's not super fast.
Oh.
Maybe anticipating deep analysis.
Yeah, okay. And Anton is just sort of eating his graveyard now because he doesn't really care, or he doesn't want to. But then we are back in like the situation I talked about pre-game, right? Because now there are sort of no real counters. There are only like the counter spell.
Yeah. The actual hard card counters are few in between.
Yeah. And then there's a bunch of force spikes, memory lapses, circular logics, and so on. But nothing that really sort of counters spells. And that's going to be a problem because Jorstedt has abeyances and squandered resources that kind of must be countered at this stage of the game. I mean, he could let abeyance resolve and see what happens, sort of, but I don't think that's a very productive line either.
So Mattias, the furnace having done chores, cycles it.
Yeah.
Hopefully finding that fifth land. Hopefully.
It's actually, oh wow, okay. This is interesting. I mean, Mattias, obviously, we can see he could pretty much go for a guaranteed win from this spot if he tries. But the question is, can he count on Anton not having like any counters? And
I think that's a pretty long shot. I mean, even the force spike is good enough in this position.
No, it's not. You just cast squandered resources, and if it resolves, you wait until your next turn.
Yeah, and your next turn, yeah. He can't go off on this turn.
He could have gone off on this turn also, but
that would leave him exposed, I guess.
Not really, but okay. Yeah, so here we have. Yeah, I mean, Anton can very well lose from this position if Mattias decides to go for it. Very interesting spot here, I think, for Mattias is.
This looks like he's considering actually pulling the trigger.
Yeah. No. And we go to the end step. Yeah. Okay. No, but I think that's good on Mattias's part. He sort of waits until he has mana untapped. However, Anton does not have counters, but he does have recoil, so with squandered resources gets reset, and we can play this scenario out next turn again.
Yeah.
And Anton is thinking about recoiling. And maybe he...
You think he should?
I definitely think he should. I don't. I think it's an automatic play because he can't really not do it. And Mattias can Pyroblast here, but he can also ignore it because he does have that redundant Cadaverous Bloom, right? So it's not. It would be an okay cost if he doesn't, because Mattias now should realize that Anton doesn't really have a counter, or doesn't have a good one at least. So, and if that's the case, then you might as well allow for it to resolve and discard another, which is exactly what happens.
So if Jonsson has a hard counter here, he's pretty much forced to play it on the squandered resources, right? When Mattias casts it next turn.
No, that's the thing. He's not really, because if he only has one hard counter. Okay, this is the main. Okay, he's trying to dig for duress here.
Isn't this lethal?
I forgot. I knew all the numbers before, but he gets 3 cards and then
discards 5, 6 on the Psychatog, and then.
Either way, I mean, Jorstedt has Pyroblast, so it's not lethal, and we know that. But maybe he's thinking that he should just go for it. And Jorstedt gives, okay, it's a very good split for Jorstedt. If Anton goes for lethal here, then he's definitely losing. And and if he takes duress, then okay, then he can get the squandered resources, but
someone in chat is surprised that Jorstedt didn't pyro the factor prediction. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, my thoughts on that is that Olle doesn't realize that Pyroblast can kill Tog. You know, he has won a Pro Tour, but that was a long time ago, and he's kind of old here. And Anton says, okay, well, I will call it. Maybe you have a Pyroblast, and if so, then I probably lose. And I think it's kind of the correct play, because he would lose to a Pyroblast anyway on the next turn. Since Jorstedt will be able to force through the squandered resources at that point.
But had he taken the duress?
Yeah, had he taken the duress, then he would have cast it and taken the squandered resources. Then Pyroblast kills Psychatog, and sort of nothing happens for a couple of turns. They are in top deck mode.
Yeah.
But as is, yeah, you know. Yeah, we are just, Anton is gonna pump it up to lethal. He realizes, of course, that Jorstedt might have Pyroblast from the sideboard, but that's literally the only way that Psychatog is dying at this point. So he's just going for it.
And how many cards did Jorstedt draw after the last duress? I mean, he has some confidence. I mean, some knowledge of his opponent's hand.
Yeah, he knows about the prosperity. That's it. And yeah, I agree with it. It's a bit unlucky to draw fact in that position. And here comes the Pyroblast, and now Jorstedt.
That's probably all she wrote, huh?
Yeah, and now everything Anton can do is for spike, literally. Like that's the play in Jorstedt's turn. Jorstedt knows this, and Jorstedt is also Anton is tapped out here, so Jorstedt can and will go for like the full combo with no hindrance here. And so I'm actually going to the bathroom. Maybe you can talk about something for 1 minute. I will be right back.
You go ahead and do that.
So while I'm sort of exiting out
through through the final steps of what will be Jorstedt winning this game in all likelihood. So what he's doing now is preparing for the natural. What's the name of the card again? Natural. Yikes, that's awkward. Natural balance is the name of the card. So floating 6 in the pool now, and then the natural balance brings him down to 2 plus the 5 lands. So from there he can do a big prosperity and Cadaverous Bloom, and then another prosperity, and sooner or later he's gonna find that that Rain Life that we saw last game. While we wait for things to play out, I would like to talk about our upcoming matches. So, assuming that Jorstedt wins this one, he'll be facing up against Larsson playing Fairies. And as we mentioned earlier, Råde is moves on to face Rosholm. And I'm not sure if the date has been announced yet, but I'm gonna assume that it's the next Sunday. 9 o'clock.
Actually, it's. I think Bjorn talked about running it on every Monday instead. From now on, I don't know, but yeah, it hasn't been announced. But I believe the next date is next Monday. And again, all that social media jazz, you know about it: Facebooks, the Twitters, the Instagrams, the Tumblrs, the bloggers. I don't actually think we're on all of those, but anyway, there's a broad range of it. Definitely the Twitter, and definitely the YouTube. And last week's matches, if you missed those, you could see me, Thomas Rosson, beat up Dennis Rashid, and in a game of Magic. That is, I'm not. Yeah, I'm a really nice guy, down to earth, soft, and all that. And the other match was Jens Thorén, the Solemn Simulacrum guy, and Joel Larsson, like the great white hope from Sweden right now. Great guy, great player, both of them, and that's on YouTube. Go watch it if you haven't seen it. And this game is just over. I don't fault Anton for casting the
main.
Oh wow, yeah. The going for the kill there, I think it's reasonable. Say okay, there is some chance that he doesn't have a Pyroblast, and if so, I win.
Yeah.
Given the split that Jorstedt gave him, maybe he shouldn't have. But I don't know.
Yeah, I mean it's easy to in hindsight, right?
Yeah, sure.
But I think that even having the information he had, I mean that duress, he was sure to get at least a squandered resource, right?
Yeah.
But then he would have opened himself up to a likely Cadaverous Bloom on the.
Yeah, but Cadaverous Bloom doesn't generate blue mana, so you can't just tap out.
Yeah.
It's strong, sure. It helps you go off. You sort of have to counter it, yeah. But it doesn't generate blue mana, so you can't just play it and go off with that alone. No. You can play it, untap, have a couple of blue mana, and sort of just ignore the whole natural balance squandered resources plan. But it requires more work for sure.
For sure.
And Anton is asking if he is allowed to concede. And I believe the answer is yes, but I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's pretty safe to say that.
I mean, far be it for me to say that he should. I mean, I know Jens Thorén 10 years ago. He wouldn't concede. But, maybe Anton Jonsson of today is feeling different.
Yeah.
Kai Budde, he wouldn't have conceded. No, that's not him. But
they give your opponent the option for like a misclick or a misplay.
And Mattias, he didn't know how to undo stuff before. Like maybe he just casts a prosperity for one too much. Or
yeah. I guess it's like a kind of, I wouldn't say it's not the most sportsman-like of tactics, but yeah.
Well, you know, he's.
At least this is something.
Or,
Or,
oh, here we go. Oh, horseback. And Anton is F6th, I think. And well, like I said, I mean the jokes on all of us living in Scandinavia or Sweden or whatever. You know, he lives in.
yeah.
That's just. Actually, one thing that I should mention that Anton said before today is that he had received sideboard tips from Kai Bude.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So I'm not sure what that amounted to, but apparently casting pro without the kicker is. I'm not going to dwell on that, but.
Yeah.
And yeah, you should. If there were such a thing as MMA fights, I can say with some confidence that I would end up last, and Jorstedt trains jiu-jitsu of some sort. So
really?
you would have to look out for him.
So powerful, multi-talented guy then.
Yeah, he knows it all. Like he knows chess. He knows magic, like he won a pro tour, right? That ain't for nothing. The jiu-jitsu, and then he plays frisbee golf.
Really?
Like because why not have another hobby, right? I mean, you're already doing all the other stuff. Just pile some more hobbies on there. That's sort of his. And he's a poker professional as well. So I mean, why not? Yeah.
Wow. So while we wait for this matchup to play out, maybe we should talk. I mean, you mentioned we talked a little bit about the upcoming matchup between you and Råde on which I guess will be the next one, and following that would be Larsson playing Ferries versus the Prosbloom deck. And what are your takes on that one?
I think that's a matchup that's very much like this one. I think it's gonna come down to like Jorstedt sculpting his hand, and then Joel bringing in 4 thought seizes. I don't think there's that big a difference between the two matchups. It will probably play out, to some extent like this one.
I guess what you can say about the Ferris deck is that it has, a little bit better ability to put a damage pressure on the Prosbloom deck with cards like Bit of Blossom and.
You're right. It's probably better.
And you also had the Mistbind Click main deck to actually disrupt the build-up pre-sideboard.
Yeah, sure. It's better positioned. I still think it's going to come down to games that look pretty much like this, with Ferris player trying to build up some amount of counters and applying as much pressure as it can without sacrificing holding maximum amount of counters. And I think the Prosbloom deck is going to try to play around that. I do think it favors Joel because he has a better game 1 matchup, like we talked about before. I don't think Anton should win game 1 here. I think that's because I know the Prosbloom deck. It's really good at beating straight up counterspell decks, and that's sort of what the Psychatog deck has to play out as in game 1. Well, okay, Mr. Chat, 10 off. Much easier. I think that's an overstatement. It will be easier. Yeah, it's a better matchup for sure. I don't think it will be a walk in the park for Ferris. I think especially game 1 be at least kind of even.
Yeah. Well, everyone should tune in and find out.
Yeah, sure. And you keep check, see when the date is.
Exactly.
And so on. But like I said, I think it's going to be next Monday. I don't know, but probably.
Be sure to follow SVM TV on Facebook to get the updates. You can also check our website at www.svmtv.org Also, here you can also find deck lists and some background information. As always, of course, keep going with that social media. Spread the word to your friends. Anyone who has who's a Magic fan should really tune in, because this is quite exciting, I think.
Yeah, and just like retweet the hell out of everything you see coming out. You know, that's the retweeting. That's what it's all about these days. Like but this game is about to close up. I think there's a in hand.
There it is, the train life for lethal damage.
Yeah, but anyway, thanks for tuning in, everyone. I guess we lost some viewers like 5 or 10 minutes ago to sort of the Prosbloom deck going off. Anyway, it was a blast. My name is Thomas Jonsson. You can not follow me on Twitter, but SVM TV, sure, yeah. Don't friend me on Facebook, but you can like the SVM page. And you will see SVM TV online again, with or without me, but definitely with Anders.
Yes.
So, ta-ta, and all that.
Yeah, thanks everyone for tuning in again. Upcoming matchup will be the Deadguy Red we saw today, facing off against Thomas Rosholm, who was with us casting. Thomas is playing the Replenish deck from 2000, and so that will be our next matchup. Following that one will be Larsson playing Fires versus the Prosbloom deck you just saw. Stay tuned for the exact date and time, but we assume it's gonna be next Monday at the same time as tonight. All right, thank you. Have a good, pleasant time. Good night.